Relief Baia District, Kampong Chhnang Province. After surviving the Khmer Rouge regime by literally burying the tools of his trade underground, Yom, one of the few remaining old masters of the Cambodian martial art, Labokatao, spends his time teaching his skills to the younger generation, dreaming to develop the sport to the level of other countries' martial arts. Labokatao, also written Bokator, is the oldest martial art that's still practiced in Cambodia and is an important part of the past and present of Kampong Chhnang Province, which is known not just for artwork like pottery, but for its strong military tradition. The ancient martial art combines techniques like throwing elbows, knees, and punches, as well as weaponry. This kind of martial art was used for combat in past wars, in addition to being a source of entertainment and a spiritual practice. Despite its militaristic roots, the presence of Labokatao in Cambodia dwindled as the country weathered periods of war and social upheaval. Under the Khmer Rouge regime, where artists and athletes were targeted and killed because they were considered part of the country's urban elite, Labokatao almost completely disappeared. Under Yom's instructions, students demonstrate their skills learned at a Labokatao club in Kampong Chnang's provincial capital, chanting and calling at the group leader's command. In an exhibitional sparring match, a teenage girl takes on two male peers, emulating the moves that masters would have used in fatal fights in the past. Starting with combat pulls, the girl disarms her peers by side-swiping with her pull, dodging and making fast grabs. And when the boys finally take her pull, they switch to bare-handed jabs and high kicks. Yom is one of a small number of people who are fighting to preserve Labokatao traditions after surviving the genocidal regime. Through his and other practitioners' passion, the martial art is slowly regaining its popularity, with some of its ritualistic and violent traditions transformed as they are passed on to younger generations. Originally from Kampong Chnang Province, Yom, 67, has spent the past 10 years sharing Labokatao with young fighters, with the hope that the martial art will be recognized and listed as an intangible heritage by UNESCO, a long-sought recognition of the sport's foundational role in Southeast Asian martial arts. He says he's been training students for free since 1993, starting by teaching his peers in the community before quitting his job casting molds for pagoda statues and other structures, in order to open a club in Kampong Chnang City in 2004. The club was formally registered in 2011. Beyond training students, Yom says he's worked with other Labokatao advocates, collecting information from masters older than him and sharing what he can with Phnom Penh and international stakeholders interested in preserving the martial art. The ancient city of Longvek, now in Kampong Chnang Province's Kampong Chalak district, was known as a gathering point for all scholars, martial arts experts, and other knowledgeable people, and it served as the heart of the country's military from the end of the Angkorian era through the present. Kranglev, Pongro, and Svai Trum communes in the province's Relief Baia district are areas that are known for widespread martial arts training, and the national military still trains a large number of its forces there, Yom says. Yom, a Kampong Chnang native, says his grandfather passed on Labokatao to his father, bestowing a golden badge tied to a rope as a symbol of mastery. Because Labokatao was so important to his forefathers, Yom says he feels called to revive and preserve the tradition. He started training in Labokatao with his father when he was 7 or 8 years old. In his early childhood under the Lon Nol regime, the martial art was not allowed to be practiced freely because it was associated with opposing military forces, so he studied in secret.
សម័យនោះអញ្ចេះថ្ងៃសម័យហ្នឹងគឺវាបែងចែកជាពីរហើយណាខ្ញុំចង់និយាយថាត្រឹមយើងតួប្រយ៉ាងនេះមកនេះនៅក្នុងតំបន់អីគឺនៅក្នុងតំបន់រណុលបាទនៅក្នុងតំបន់រណុលហើយធំយើងនេះអាតួក្រាំងថងសាលាអីគេហៅសាលាហងៃនេះយើងជិះមកឃើញសាលាមួយគាត់ហ្នឹងទៅចេះគឺតំបន់នោះដល់ហើយដល់នោះសំដៅលើខ្មែរគេហៅថាខ្មែរក្រហមឬក៏ខ្មែរអ៊ីស្រាអែលខ្មែរនឹងវាកំពុងតែចលនាទាញបន្ទង់គ្នាហើយកាលណាបើយើងហាត់អាហ្នឹងខាងនេះដឹងថាយើងបកចលនាហ្នឹងដើម្បីផ្ដួលហាត់សមដើម្បីផ្ដួលគ្នាហើយខាងនោះឃើញគេថាយើងហាត់ហ្នឹងបំរើខាងនេះ
The past political beliefs about La Bocatao, compounded by the Khmer Rouge-era murder of masters, have made it challenging for Yom to get information from practitioners in their 70s and older, as they sometimes feel still afraid to reveal all that they know.
គឺអត់ឆ្លើយតែចេះទេដោយសារវាទទួលឥទ្ធិពលពីសម័យនោះមកបាទក៏នៅមានការគិតនោះអាការសម័យគេវាយចោលកូនភ្នែកងប់អស់នោះ
A few kilometers from the provincial town, another master, Kai Samon, 80, from the Sveitrum commune, says he finally retired from practicing La Bocatao this year as he's had some trouble with his lungs, and his family pushed him to stop. He had only started about 5 years ago to retrain the skills that had been embedded in his mind since he was 8 years old. Like his younger peer, Samon's family passed down the martial art. He was taught by an older uncle who was a member of the Khmer Issarak movement that fought for independence from the French colonial regime. At that time, government soldiers sought to arrest members of Khmer Issarak, so he and other practitioners in the province would train behind his home at sundown to avoid suspicion.
លូចលាក់មិនចេះតែបង្ហាញដូចឥឡូវនេះចេះបង្ហាញគ្នាអាវុធផងក្បាច់គុណផង
Samon says he was training full-time in La Bocatao and general wrestling by the time he was 20 years old. But shortly after, the Khmer Rouge took control of the country, and he hid his background in La Bocatao. During the regime, cadre members heard from his relatives that he had studied La Bocatao and began asking about his ability. He would deny his knowledge out of fear that they would kill him, but eventually he began showing a few moves to soldiers who just wanted to see them.
អត់ទេខ្ញុំអត់ទេបាទសុំបីតាចំណេះដឹងអសរនាំអីខ្ញុំថាខ្ញុំអត់ចេះទាំងអស់ខ្ញុំឆ្លើយតែបដិសេធខ្ញុំអត់ចេះទាំងអស់បាទ
Samon says he did not resume La Bocatao even after the Khmer Rouge fell, but would occasionally join small wrestling competitions during national holidays or festivals. Samon didn't want to train his children or other students in the martial art. But in the past 5 years, he became involved in La Bocatao again after Yom, a neighbor, constantly urged him to share his skills. Though he was initially afraid to demonstrate his ability, Samon says he's happy to see more people interested in La Bocatao again. As the reporter is about to depart Samon's home, the retired master grabs his hand and locks him in a grasp, showing his mastery hasn't faded with age. Vat Chamron, Secretary General of the Olympic Committee of Cambodia, says the nation's sports agency has worked with other older masters for years to find other remaining masters and compile their knowledge into martial arts books. Through conversations with older masters and meetups in the capital, the country has uncovered La Bocatao practitioners who may have been too hesitant to share their abilities. When Samon first began training decades ago, there was a young girl, the granddaughter of a master, who would watch and sometimes participate in La Bocatao training sessions. Now 80 years old, that girl, Sao Von, still recalls how she would watch her grandfather practice La Bocatao and try to emulate the moves behind her house. When she turned 15, her grandfather invited her to study alongside the guys, though many in the village would criticize her for her training, she says. Von says she can no longer wield a baton like she used to. She says her memory is fading as well, and her thoughts drift during the interview. Von's daughter, Katsuni, 52, says she knew nothing of her mother's skill until Lobokotao advocates visited her home and asked Vaughn to join an event for elder masters in Phnom Penh.
ចង់និយាយថាគាត់ចង់ឲ្យទេតំណែងដែរតែដូចថាវាស្មុគស្មាញ
Chamron says that as they're collecting knowledge of the older generations, the committee is also modernizing the sport, creating a management structure, starting yearly competitions, and setting up proper training regimes that follow official rules. And since 2015, select techniques, including weapons tactics, have been incorporated into Cambodia's military training programs. Chamron argues that conserving the sport's traditions cannot be separated from the development, and is critical to showing the international importance of the martial art. The sport is now recognized by the World Martial Arts Association and will be included in the 2023 Southeast Asia Games. But UNESCO Intangible Heritage status has still eluded the sport. Part of that includes taming modern Lobokotao from the fierce and dangerous martial arts that was used by soldiers in ancient wars and warriors in fatal combat, Chamron says. Traditionally, practicing Lobokotao requires training in techniques as well as spiritual energy and strategy. But the Olympic Committee prohibits some moves in competition in order to keep it fair to competitors and prevent excessive violence. The trainers and practitioners can choose to practice spiritual awareness and ancestral worship as part of Lobokotao, as they did in previous eras. Chamron says it should not be a requirement in the modern fighting ring. As his students start to perform well in the martial art, Yom says he's eager to promote their abilities, bringing them to competitions and festivals. He says he sacrifices a lot of his time and energy to grow both general interest in the sport and Kampong Chnang province's unique affinity for Lobokotao. Fighters from Kampong Chnang are known for their grabs and takedowns, Yom explains, and their competitors are probably just behind those from Siem Reap province, where many fighters have trained in recent years.
យើងចង់ស្ដារមកវិញថាកំពង់ឆ្នាំងវាវិសាលភាពទៅដោយអ្នកហាត់ក្បាច់គុណចុះហេតុអីដល់ពេលសម័យនេះវាអត់អញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំនៅចាស់ព្រឹទ្ធាចាស់ប្រហែលអ្នកហ្នឹងហើយឥឡូវនៅខ្ញុំឥឡូវខ្ញុំបន្តទៅឲ្យក្មេងៗកូនហ្នឹងខ្ញុំចង់បានឲ្យវាមានតទៅទៀត
To Srenek, 17, a student at Yom's club, says she has trained in Lobokotao for 4 years, though her parents were initially hesitant about her interest in the sport.
ទៅគឺខ្ញុំឃើញសម្លៀកបំពាក់របស់Lobokotao គឺខ្ញុំស្រឡាញ់ព្រោះអីខ្មែរជំនាន់មុនគឺគាត់អស្ចារ្យ
When she began practicing Lobokotao, her family, friends and neighbors saw it as a man's sport and discouraged her from training.
តែនៅពេលដែលគេនិយាយគឺខ្ញុំអត់ដែរខ្វល់សំខាន់គឺខ្ញុំហាត់ខ្ញុំស្រឡាញ់របស់ដូនតាដែលគាត់បានបន្សល់ទុកឲ្យ
The training can be challenging, Srenek says, but Lobokotao has taught her to act with patience and think before taking actions. She says she's shed some of her stubbornness, but she still trains with determination.
យើងជាអ្នកបន្តវេនរបស់ដូនតាអញ្ចឹងយើងអត់ត្រូវទន់ខ្សោយយើងត្រូវតែខំប្រឹងពីអស់ពីសមត្ថភាពដែលយើងមាន
Yong Tak, 21, has trained for 10 years and become one of the top fighters at the Kampong Chnang club. But his parents also did not want him to pursue Lobokotao at first, despite both his father and mother having trained in the martial art when they were young.
ឮចាស់បុរាណគាត់និយាយថា Lobokotao ខ្លាំងហ្នឹងបងតែខ្ញុំអត់ដែរបានស្គាល់អញ្ចឹងឮតែគាត់បើកនៅនេះតែខ្ញុំរកដែររកអត់ឃើញតែពេលដែលចិត្តចង់ចិត្តនេះអីផងពុះពៀមកបងរហូតមកដល់រយៈពេលហ្នឹងអត់តាន់ឈប់ទេ
Through years of training, the young fighter says he's gained self-discipline and even begun worshipping ancestors to ask for strength before practice. As Lobokotao fighters of the past, Tak says he still has one opponent in Siem Reap province he has yet to beat, but he has studied the martial art and his opponent's skills very closely in order to challenge him again.
ខ្ញុំធៀមហើយអស់ហើយបងខ្ញុំមើលចំណុចខ្សោយហើយចំណុចខ្វះខាតរបស់ដៃគូខ្ញុំហើយ
In the pupils' final demonstration, as reporters prepare to leave, Yom watches as Tak performs a backflip while holding knives in both hands. It was not a move the old master had taught him.